Welcome back to CrimePod Castle. I'm thrilled to have you here for our third episode of Ghosts of the Past. Today,
Ooh.
we're diving into a case that truly chills me to the bone.
Hmm.
The Gulbarg Society Massacre.
Yeah.
It's such a dark chapter in Indian history. It's a stark reminder of the consequences of communal hatred
Right.
and how quickly things can spiral out of control when tensions boil over.
Yeah, it's a complex case for sure. One that raises a lot of questions about institutional failures and the long and arduous fight for justice.
Exactly. 69 lives lost,
Yeah.
including a former member of parliament,
Yeah.
Ehsan Jafri,
Tragic.
and the enduring struggle of survivors like his widow, Zakia Jafri. So get ready for a story of tragedy, resilience, and the persistent pursuit of truth and accountability.
Yeah, it's it's important to understand that this wasn't an isolated incident. The Gulbarg Society Massacre occurred in the context of the Gujarat riots. This was a period of widespread communal violence that really shook the state back in 2002.
Okay, so let's rewind to February 27, 2002. A train carrying Hindu pilgrims was set on fire in Gadra.
And tragically, 59 people died. And this incident became the catalyst for the riots that followed. What can you tell us about the immediate aftermath of the Gadra train burning?
Well, the incident sparked widespread outrage and grief. And unfortunately, that grief quickly turned into anger and blame,
Right.
which was directed at Muslim communities.
Mm-hmm.
Retaliatory attacks began almost immediately.
Wow.
And within days, the violence had spread across the state. Imagine entire neighborhoods engulfed in flames, mobs roaming the streets, and this pervasive sense of fear and chaos just gripping the region.
It's hard to even fathom the level of terror that people must have felt at that time.
Absolutely. And within this volatile context, the Gulbarg Society, a Muslim-majority housing complex in Ahmedabad, became a target.
So on February 28th, just a day after the Gadra incident, this relatively peaceful housing complex becomes the epicenter of a horrific massacre. Can you paint a picture for us? What exactly happened at Gulbarg Society?
Sure. Picture this. A mob of over 20,000 people, armed with swords, sticks, Molotov cocktail.
Descends upon Gulbarg Society. The residents, about 200 of them,
Oh my God.
are trapped inside, terrified and desperate for help.
They must have felt so helpless.
Absolutely. They had barricaded themselves and hoping to wait out the storm of violence that was sweeping the city.
It must have felt like a siege.
Yeah, it was. And Ehsan Jafri, a respected former member of parliament, was among those trapped inside. And he frantically called the police, political leaders, anyone he could think of, pleading for help. But despite his desperate pleas, the response was tragically inadequate.
So as this mob is closing in, what happens next?
Well, accounts from survivors and witnesses paint a very chilling picture. Jafri, in an act of incredible courage, tried to reason with the mob to appeal to their humanity.
Wow.
Some accounts even suggest that he stepped outside to try and negotiate with the leaders of the mob,
Oh no.
hoping to defuse the situation.
He was trying to protect everyone.
He was, but his pleas were met with violence. He was brutally attacked and killed,
Oh my God.
and the mob's rage only intensified.
This is where the story takes an even darker turn, right?
Yes. The mob stormed into the complex, and what followed was a horrifying massacre. 69 people were killed, including women, children, and the elderly. Just imagine the sheer terror, the desperate attempts to hide, the cries for help going unanswered. It's a testament to the destructive power of hatred and mob mentality.
It's heartbreaking. And you mentioned that Joffrey had been desperately calling for help, even reaching out to high-ranking officials. Did any help ever arrive?
Tragically, no. The police response was delayed and, according to many accounts, inadequate. Survivors alleged that the police stood by as the violence unfolded, doing little to stop the carnage.
So you have this horrific event, a delayed police response, and accusations of a deliberate lack of protection for this community. What happened next? Did anyone try to hold those responsible accountable?
Immediately, there were calls for justice. Survivors and human rights groups demanded a thorough investigation, accusing local leaders of inciting the mob and the police of deliberately turning a blind eye to the violence. They pointed to specific instances of alleged police inaction.
Right.
And they argued that the attack was premeditated, not simply a spontaneous eruption of violence.
It sounds like there's a lot more to uncover here. We'll be right back after a short break.
And the initial investigations were, they were slow and, according to many, deeply flawed.
Right.
This led to a growing sense of frustration and distrust, particularly among the survivors who felt that their cries for justice were being ignored.
So if the initial investigations were inadequate, what
Yeah.
changed? How did the case progress towards any semblance of justice?
Well, it took the intervention of the highest court in the land.
Okay.
In 2008, 6 years after the massacre,
Wow.
the Supreme Court of India stepped in. They ordered the formation of a special investigation team, or SIT for short,
Right.
to re-examine key cases from the Gujarat riots, including Gulbarg.
That's a big step.
It was a major turning point, a glimmer of hope for those who had been fighting for so long.
Okay, so the Supreme Court steps in, a special investigation team is formed.
Hmm.
What did the SIT uncover in their investigation?
The SIT's investigation, you could say, was like peeling back the layers of a complex and deeply troubling story.
Yeah.
They dug deep, poring over witness testimonies, analyzing phone records, and scrutinizing forensic evidence.
Yeah.
And what they found was disturbing.
What kind of disturbing details are we talking about here?
Their findings suggested a level of premeditation and planning that was truly chilling.
Oh, wow.
Witness testimonies placed local leaders at the scene, allegedly inciting the mob and directing the violence. Phone records revealed a network of communication between key players, suggesting a coordinated effort.
Wow.
And forensic evidence corroborated the survivors' accounts of the brutality and the systematic nature of the attack.
So the SIT uncovers evidence of premeditation, links to local leaders, and a coordinated attack. It sounds like they were building a strong case. But you mentioned earlier that the road to justice was anything but smooth. What obstacles did the SIT face in their pursuit of accountability?
You're right. The SIT faced immense challenges. It highlights how difficult it can be to seek justice when powerful forces are at play.
Yeah,
There were allegations of witness intimidation,
of course.
with survivors and witnesses facing pressure to recant their statements or simply stay silent.
Wow.
The SIT also faced pushback from certain political quarters with attempts to discredit their work and downplay the significance of their findings.
It's a pattern we see all too often, isn't it? Where the pursuit of justice clashes with political agendas and powerful interests.
It is.
But despite these obstacles, the SIT persevered. And eventually, the case went to trial, right?
Yes, in 2009, the trial for the Gulbarg Society Massacre began. This was a landmark moment, not just for the survivors, but for India as a whole.
Right.
It became one of the most closely watched trials in the country's history, with people across the nation waiting to see if justice would finally be served.
And at the center of this legal battle was Zakia Jafri, Ehsan Jafri's widow.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about her role in this long fight for justice.
Zakia Jafri's story is one of extraordinary courage and resilience.
Absolutely.
Imagine losing your husband in such a horrific way, yet finding the strength to not only grieve, but to also dedicate yourself to seeking justice for him and for all the victims.
Right.
She became a relentless advocate for the survivors, refusing to be silenced or intimidated.
She faced immense pressure, I imagine, threats, and attempts to discredit her.
Absolutely. But she never wavered in her determination. She stood as a symbol of hope for the survivors and a powerful voice demanding accountability. And finally, in 2016, after years of legal battles, the verdict was delivered.
This must have been a highly anticipated moment. What was the outcome of the trial?
Well, the verdict was, you could say, a bittersweet victory.
Okay.
24 people were convicted for their roles in the massacre. Some received life sentences for murder and conspiracy, offering some measure of justice to the victims' families. However, several high-profile figures, those accused of orchestrating the violence, were acquitted due to a lack of evidence.
Oh, wow.
This left many with mixed feelings.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
While some of the perpetrators were held accountable, the alleged masterminds, those who may have fueled the fire of hatred, escaped punishment. So how did Zakia Jafri respond to this verdict?
She refused to give up.
Good for her.
She believed that the full truth had not yet been revealed,
Right.
and that those in positions of power who may have been complicit in the violence needed to be held accountable. In a bold move, she filed another petition, alleging a larger conspiracy.
Wow.
This petition claimed that the violence wasn't just a spontaneous eruption, but a planned and orchestrated event, enabled by high-ranking political leaders and government officials.
That's a serious allegation, implicating those at the highest levels of power. How was this petition received by the courts?
Unfortunately, Zakia Jafri's petition was ultimately dismissed in 2022. The court ruled that there was insufficient evidence to support her claims of a larger conspiracy.
Oh, wow.
This was a major setback for her, and for those who believed that the full truth about the Gulbarg Society Massacre had yet to be revealed.
So even after years of legal battles, investigations, and a trial, there's still a sense of unfinished business,
Right.
a lingering question of whether full justice has been served.
Yeah,
It's a complex and emotionally charged case,
it is.
one that continues to resonate in India and beyond.
Absolutely.
But before we delve deeper into the lasting legacy of the Gulbarg Society Massacre, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far. What are your key takeaways, and what aspects of this case stand out to you the most?
What strikes me is how this case embodies the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred.
Right.
We see how quickly fear and anger can escalate into violence, how prejudice can blind individuals and entire communities, leading to acts of unimaginable cruelty. It's a sobering reminder of the importance of tolerance, understanding, and respect for all.
I completely agree. And I'm also struck by the courage and resilience of the survivors, particularly Zakia Jafri.
Oh, yeah. Her unwavering commitment to seeking justice, even in the face of unimaginable loss and relentless obstacles, is truly inspiring. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope can endure, and the pursuit of truth and accountability is a fight worth fighting.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that justice isn't always a neat and tidy package.
Right.
It can be a messy, complicated process fraught with challenges and setbacks.
Absolutely.
But even when full accountability remains elusive, the pursuit of truth and the fight against injustice are essential.
I think so too, and I think it's crucial to remember that the Gulbarg Society Massacre isn't just a historical event.
Right.
It's a story with profound implications for us today. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own societies and the dangers of prejudice, discrimination, and the erosion of human rights.
You're right. We see instances of communal violence, hate crimes, and systemic injustices happening all around the world. It's a reminder that the lessons of the past are still relevant, and that we need to be vigilant in our efforts to combat hatred, to promote understanding, and to build a more just and equitable world for all.
Absolutely. And this case also highlights the importance of critical thinking and media literacy.
Yeah.
The way information is presented and the narratives that gain traction can significantly influence public perception and even the course of justice.
That's a great point, especially in the age of social media and instant news.
Right.
It's more important than ever to be discerning consumers of information, to question narratives, to seek out diverse perspectives, and to be wary of those who seek to exploit division for political gain.
Exactly. And it's also crucial to remember that justice is an ongoing process. It's not just about legal verdicts or court rulings.
Right.
It's about creating a society where such tragedies are less likely to occur,
Yeah.
where communities feel safe and protected, and where human rights are truly upheld.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Gulbarg Society Massacre, what would you say is the most important message for our listeners to take away?
Well, I'd say it's a call to action, a call to be more aware of the injustices happening around us, to speak out against hatred and discrimination, and to advocate for policies and practices that promote equality, justice, and human dignity.
Yeah.
The Gulbarg Society Massacre stands as a stark reminder of what can happen when we remain silent or complacent in the face of injustice. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in building a better, more just world.
Well said. It's a story that should stay with us,
Yeah.
prompting us to reflect on our own actions and to commit to making a positive difference in the world, no matter how small.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about these complex issues, the better equipped we are to address them and to work towards a future where such tragedies are never repeated.
That's a powerful message to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Gulbarg Society Massacre. It's a story that deserves to be heard, remembered, and learned from.
It's been a privilege to share these insights with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us here at CrimePod Castle. If you found this deep dive insightful, please share it with others. It's through conversations like these, through raising awareness and promoting understanding, that we can truly make a difference. And if you're new to CrimePod Castle, be sure to subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss any of our deep dives into history's most compelling and thought-provoking cases. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. All out.